Joining us now to talk more about the major news we've just Trump administration, Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. This is something that you have been fighting for. Talk to us a little bit about when you got word and what you believe this means for New Yorkers.
Well, I've been speaking with President Trump and Secretary Duffy now for a few weeks since they took their offices. But this has been going on since May. That was when I first approached President Trump about this, and he immediately said that he would do whatever he can to halt this program. He, as a New Yorker, understands how damaging this program is to our city's economy, to our local businesses, to the residents, the constituents that we both represent. This was an unfair toll, particularly considering the residents that I represent in Staten Island. They are already tolled to connect to the rest of the city. And this was a double toll that they were facing to go into the center of the city in which they live. And so for the people I represent in Staten Island and Brooklyn, this is a good day, and it was very unfair what this governor did in terms of tolling not just my constituents, but think about the first responders, the restaurant workers, the nurses, people going in for medical appointments, and they have to go in at all sorts of odd hours, and they didn't feel safe riding the subways of New York City, and we had urged the governor to, instead of tolling people to try to force them onto the transit system, to instead make this city's transit system safe, repeal some of the bad policies they made that had hurt public safety, and make everyone feel more comfortable in using the system.
Congresswoman, you know Governor Hochul has been actually touting the benefits so far of this plan, talking about that congestion has been reduced and that money has been raised. It also turns to the question of does the president have the authority, does the agency have the authority to stop this plan now that it has gone into place since January? Of course, we do expect legal challenges at this point.
Well, they certainly do have the authority to reverse the decision made by the previous administration. Remember, President Biden rubber-stamped the congestion pricing plan without ensuring that a full and thorough environmental impact statement was conducted as required by federal law is one of the reasons why I'm a party in the lawsuit to stop congestion pricing, which also needs to have its day in court. The president is right here in using his authority to reverse this, not to mention that it is a federally constructed roads and highways that were being tolled here, and that was another angle, and that's the angle that Secretary Duffy points to in his letter. But also remember the New Jersey lawsuit that was recently in court, where the judge said that federal highways should further study the impact that this would have on residents. And so he is within his right to reverse the previous administration's rubber stamping of this program. And I think it's a good day for people who are tired of being told and taxed to death by our government and treated like ATMs by this agency, the MTA.
Congresswoman, are there any circumstances under which you might down the road agree to a plan like this? You talked about that environmental impact study. The MTA has talked about the fact that if it's going to broaden the system, improve the system to the standards that folks here expect, it needs that money. Are there any circumstances under which you see congestion pricing might make sense to you?
Well, I won't support any plan that double tolls my constituents to drive into the center and the city in which they live. But what I will say is about a decade ago, Sam Schwartz had a much better plan, and his plan actually spread the toll burden evenly throughout the city of New York. And not only the toll burden, but the traffic was made proportional. I never supported that plan because I needed to have a cap on the tolling. But that plan made much better sense as it relates to moving the traffic proportionally throughout the city, so there isn't one particular artery where there is a backup, and tolls like the Verrazano Bridge wouldn't be so high. It would be, let's say, $250 across all the arteries around the city of New York. And I think that could be one approach that could be looked at again. But in addition to that, we should be looking at why Ubers, ride shares, they're allowed to drive into the city center. They're the ones that are creating oftentimes the congestion. And let's also look at some of the changes that our government made that made it miserable to drive in New York City. The bike lanes, taking away all sorts of lanes, parking spots to accommodate bicyclists. I think that needs to be done in a fair and a reasonable way that makes sense. And so these are the things that we should be looking at. And I still say, make the city's transit system safer, and more people will ride the transit system.
Congressman, before we let you go, we're still waiting to hear from Governor Hochul on this issue and how the state intends to move forward. But is it your understanding that at this time that the machines are basically turned off, or is that going to happen pending more court appearances?
Well, I believe it's they should be shut off at this time. I believe that that's where it's at. The president has made his decision here. The Secretary of Transportation has rescinded the approval from the Biden administration, and therefore now these cameras are operating legally, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, as we've said, huge breaking news. Thank you so much for talking with us this afternoon. We will obviously continue to